Hey guys, what we have here is a 1912 Westinghouse 12-inch stationary table fan, style number 162634. Now this being a 6-bladed fan, this would have been what they call the residential fan. And these were designed to run a little bit slower, a little bit quieter without compromising on airflow, making them more suitable for homes and hospitals where a quieter fan would be desired, as opposed to shops and other commercial buildings. I acquired this fan sometime last year, along with a very similar but a 4-bladed model from an older gentleman who actually used to work at the Westinghouse plant in Hamilton, Ontario. Now he told me that these two fans were at the plant for the longest time, but at some point he was able to take them home with him, and the two fans were in his possession for several decades before I came along and acquired them. So it's definitely a cool piece to have. I'm sure if it could talk, it would have some cool stories to tell. But it's a beautiful fan. I'm very glad to have it in my collection, and it's cool to have the story along with it. Now, this being a pre-restoration video, I'll show you guys what the fan looks like as of now. This is pretty much in the same condition as it was when I first acquired it, both mechanically and cosmetically, but eventually when I get some time I do plan on going through it and giving it a good makeover. I haven't really thought about how far I want to go in terms of the restoration, whether I want to repaint it or not, or to preserve the original paint, or for the brass, whether I want to polish it to a mirror finish or leave the patina to show its character and age. So that's kind of up for consideration, but as of now this is how it looks, and quite frankly, considering this is a 112-year-old fan, I think it looks still pretty dang good. So the cage and the blades on this fan are entirely brass. They have a nice patina on them. So we got these S wires that connect the center ring to the rear ring. And this cage design is, I would say, my all-time favorite on any antique fan. I love the openness of the front side and the square cross-section of the rear ring. And it kind of gives the fan a really prominent look without that extra ring that typically goes around on a lot of antique fans. Of course, we got one of the highlights of the fan, the 6 brass blades, which are pitched in the counterclockwise direction, which is pretty uncommon. Most tend to go clockwise, but that was a kind of characteristic design of Westinghouse fans. Very well pitched. Now these fans were, like I mentioned earlier, residential fans, so the 6 blades help the fan run quieter without sacrificing on airflow. This fan still has the original paint. It is kind of a semi-gloss black paint. Unfortunately, it's not in the greatest condition. There are a lot of spots on the fan where the paint is peeling off, and there is some rust happening underneath. So that's making me think if I should repaint it or not, because there's still a good amount of original paint intact, but at the same time, seeing the rust and on it, all that stuff is a little sad, but it does show its age, so still considering. And from the side you can really see the pitch of the blades. They're quite substantial. We got the struts holding the cage to the motor. So we got the speed coil and the switch on the base. And as you can see, there's a lot of missing paint and rust on the motor and also on the struts. Now the wiring, the head wire on this fan is original. It's not in the greatest condition. It looks pretty rough, but it still does conduct electricity and the fan still runs, which is kind of incredible. It's got 2 oil cups, and amazingly, these oil cups have oil in them. The gentleman who I bought the fan from, he definitely knew about these and older fans and motors and how you need to lubricate them to prolong the life of them. So he definitely was mechanically inclined. As you can see, the rear of the motor has quite a bit of paint loss and rust. And the cord has been replaced. It has a very thick, almost a grounded cord. I believe this is a grounded cord, but it's attached to just a regular polarized plug. And one way to tell the date, or at least the year of manufacture on these Westinghouse fans, is to look at the blade hub. If you look very carefully, there's a little 12 stamped between the outer rivets. And that indicates 1912. It also has this nice little Westinghouse emblem on the back. And both the front and the rear bearing carriers are solid brass. They've just been painted over at the factory. Taking a look at the brass information tag, Westinghouse Electric and Manufacturing Company, and this fan was made in the USA plant in Pittsburgh. Alternating current motor. This is rated for 100 to 110 volts, 60 cycles. No mention of the wattage or the amperage. And this is a style number 162634. And here's the cord and the plug that is currently equipped on the fan. Definitely an overkill, but I find that a lot of these antiques, when people rewire them, they do go for these chunky grounded wires just to be safe. Although, funny enough, this plug doesn't actually utilize the grounding. But I'll go ahead and rewire it and use a more period correct cloth covered wire. So mechanically speaking, this fan does have some issues, the main one being the worn out bearings. The rotor moves up and down in the sleeve bearing by quite a bit. You can actually hear it when I move the blades up and down. And the rotor does drag on the stator just a little bit, so it creates a pretty nasty racket when it starts up. And also this fan does have the centrifugal start switch, so you'll hear a nice click as it winds up and down. A very cool feature that was, I believe, eliminated in 1913 or so. So this was one of the very last Westinghouse fans to utilize the centrifugal start switch. So with that being said, it will not be a very pretty demonstration, but this being a pre-restoration video, it's not exactly supposed to. It's just supposed to show what the fan is like as of now. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start the fan up and see how she runs. Here it is on speed 1, which I believe is low. So it actually stalls out completely due to the friction. So I'll give it a little boost. So once she picks up speed, she runs great. It's nice and quiet, and the airflow is very impressive, which I'm not surprised, this being a residential fan, and of course an antique, back when things were built to truly last, something you don't see anymore in any of today's products. Let's try the next speed, which I believe is medium. It doesn't have the greatest differences between the speeds, but that was also a common thing with a lot of older fans. The speed coils didn't really produce the best differences in speed. It can be done. You can rewind them to have more turns, but not really a necessity when the speed coil works just fine on this one. Incredible. Absolutely no vibration. And you would think after 112 years, during those years, something must have struck the blades and knocked it out of balance, but whether it did happen or not, the blades are still spinning true. Absolutely beautiful. Alright, let's turn it up to high speed. So that little bit of noise you're hearing is actually a combination of the worn out bearings and also some of the vibration from the worn out bearings kind of resonating through the plastic table that I'm filming on. I think it's mostly the bearings. And those clicks you heard was the centrifugal start switch as it re-engaged as the fan slowed down. Such a cool little mechanism. Alright guys, well that is the 1912 Westinghouse stationary fan, style number 162634. A beautiful fan from 112 years ago, still with us today, and it's got a pretty cool story behind it. So eventually I'll go ahead and give this fan a good cleaning, bare minimum, a good rewiring, and I'll try to see if I can somehow have the bearings refabricated, if I can get in touch with a machinist or something, but that's going to be a project for some other time. I think this would take quite a bit of time and effort to get it working a lot better. Nothing critical, you know, the motor windings seem fine, the speed coil. Electrically speaking, this fan is perfect, but cosmetically and mechanically, I'll need a little bit of tune-up. So eventually I'll make a video on that, and hopefully we'll be able to see a better looking fan in a future video. So that's going to wrap up this video. Thanks for watching guys, and as always I'll see you in the next one. Peace.